And now, a closer look.
A sleepy morning, we're out in the boondocks. Stories being told on the red cliff.
Get some motor running. Head out on the highway. Looking for adventure. And whatever comes our way. Yeah, darling, go make it happen. Take the world in a loving embrace.
Today's segment is titled Lyme Disease and a New Revolutionary Treatment from Germany.
Select the true nature's child. We were born to be wild. We can climb so high. I never wanna die. Born to be wild. Born to be wild.
When I hear the word wild, I think wilderness and getting back to nature. And what better time to do this than now? It's summertime, and these warm breezes seem to carry a call to each of us, back to the great outdoors. Or as the American author and naturalist Henry David Thoreau once said, I took a walk in the woods and came out taller than the trees. Although these words were written in the middle of the 19th century, they still ring true to this day. When we spend time in the wilderness, we somehow seem to gain a new perspective when we reflect on the beauty from the simple living in natural surroundings. But lurking in the woods, waiting for unsuspecting victims, perhaps you, to latch onto, and can change everything in just one bite. These tiny pesky varmints, now especially in the USA, patiently wait for our wilderness arrival. I'm talking about microscopic creatures, no bigger than a centimeter or two, and if you're bitten by one, can potentially spread very infectional diseases. The one particular parasitic insect I'm referring to now are blood-feeding ticks, spreading the American growing public health problem called Lyme disease, which continues to escalate nearly threefold in slightly over 10 years. And sometimes the carriers can also be fleas or mosquitoes. It's estimated that each year in the United States, about 300,000 Americans get Lyme disease, but only about 35,000 diagnoses are actually reported, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, acronym CDC. This low number of reported diagnoses is a problem, and a serious problem. Because if not diagnosed timely, and if Lyme disease is not treated correctly early on, then these pathogens, in this case bacteria, which is transmitted by their bite, when left unchecked, can actually turn long-term into a very serious, chronic, and potentially life-debilitating problem.
The road was full of mud. I came in from the wilderness, a creature void of form. Come in, she said, I'll give ya shelter.
When one looks at a map of reported Lyme disease cases throughout America, one sees that these reported cases have been clustered or grouped into regions of the Northeast and the Upper Midwest. However, that doesn't mean that these areas are exclusive for contacting Lyme disease, since we also see less dense areas around the Great Lakes and from Pennsylvania down the East Coast to the Carolinas for contacting this disease. Let's go now and listen to a musician, once an aspiring recording artist, in Los Angeles, California, who has been suffering with chronic symptoms from Lyme disease for years. On the phone, I have the singer-songwriter, Fontaine Wayman. You reside in sunny Hollywood, California. Yeah. Can you share with our listeners about when you first learned that you had Lyme disease?
Well, sadly, like many Lyme disease patients, I did not find out I had Lyme disease until about 7 years after my symptoms started. So I fell quickly very ill after being super type A personality, made 2 records by the time I was 26, released them on iTunes, and then fell ill very quickly. It hit me very hard in 2011. I was not properly diagnosed until 2016. So many years went by before I was properly diagnosed, and that is very common in the Lyme world to be misdiagnosed with things like fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, MS. It is mistaken. It's called the great imitator because it's mistaken for so many other diseases, and the longer it goes on and the longer it sort of goes rampant in your body, the more damage occurs. And that damage actually can occur not only nerve damage, muscle damage, but also organ damage, a lot of heart issues and lung issues once it's gone that long.
So you're out in California. When and where do you think you made contact with the tick, or was it even a tick?
Well, that is a great question because we all believe that it is this tick-borne illness. And at one time, I'm sure that it was, and it probably originated from ticks, but it has since become such an epidemic because it can actually be carried through fleas and mosquitoes. I believe that mine was a mosquito. It was definitely on the East Coast. I was attacked many times by mosquitoes because I come from a very humid place in South Carolina where the mosquitoes are prevalent in the summer. I remember a specific attack where I was sort of covered all over my face, my arms, in mosquito bites, and I felt pretty ill with like a fever, but didn't think anything of it. But yes, it normally comes from ticks and there's a bullseye rash, but it can also come from mosquitoes. My symptoms showed up pretty quickly after that mosquito attack, sometime within that 6-month range. I did, however, think about Lyme disease when I moved from South Carolina to Northern California because it's very rampant up there. So a lot of people, when I moved to Northern California, said, oh, it sounds like you have Lyme, you should get tested. I went to a regular doctor, had a regular blood test, and they told me that I was negative, and I let it go. But at that time, I did not know the discrepancy with the testing and the fact that the testing can be very inconclusive. The inconclusiveness is almost 50-50. A regular blood test for Lyme is not reliable. There's other much more reliable tests out there. Unfortunately, I let that diagnosis go, and because I let it go for so long and was convinced I didn't have it, it just did a lot of damage in my body. So then when I continued to try to get diagnosed, I was getting misdiagnosed because, with fibromyalgia and myositis, which is muscle wasting, and chronic fatigue, things like that, because when you have Lyme, normally you sleep sometimes 12, 15 hours a day. You have no life. It literally just ends your life as you know it. That was the hardest part for me because I was young.
As if you're running on empty.
Yeah, I did feel like my heart was running on empty because I was so passionate about life and I felt like my life was over.
You used to write and perform your own music, and of course that all came to a screeching stop due to this Lyme disease. I'd like now, if you would allow me, to play part of one of your songs, exactly what we were speaking of, called Running on Empty.
I would love that.
My heart is running on empty, so catch me before I break down. My heart is running on empty, so I can't let you in right now.
Well, if I didn't know better, Fontaine, I would think that you wrote that song about Lyme disease.
I agree with you.
And the longer this Lyme disease went without being properly treated, this led to a horrible attack on your body with debilitating pain. Can you share briefly with our listeners what happened and what was it like?
It started with this sort of out of nowhere, uncontrollable neck pain and head pressure where it almost felt like my head was going to explode. And that went on for years, and there was nothing that could fix that or treat that.
Something happened which revolutionized your late-stage Lyme disease. What was that? What happened?
In 2016, I met a French girl, a Parisian girl, at a movie premiere where my song was playing in the film, who just happened to be there with Lyme disease. She happened to be sitting right next to me, and we happened to start talking about France because I was born there, and then we started talking about her illness because it was obvious that she was very sick. I said, well, what are you doing in L.A.? And she said, I flew here to see this German doctor who opened a clinic called Infusio, and it's in Beverly Hills, and he has this really innovative way of treating Lyme. And I was fascinated with that because at that point I had finally gotten a correct diagnosis, and I immediately went to his clinic a week later, and that is where I met Dr. Philip Batiage. Here I am almost years later, and the treatment absolutely saved my life. My liver was damaged, my kidneys were damaged. It felt like there was nothing in my body that worked properly anymore, and I was just sort of waiting to die. And I'm just so grateful for him, and I'm so grateful for my life.
Is it safe for us to say that you're feeling healthy again?
Yes, absolutely. What we call it is Lyme remission, which means the bacteria is no longer showing up in my system, and that's pretty difficult to do. I don't deal with Lyme disease symptoms at all. I work almost full-time, and I'm back to writing music. And I really just want to spread awareness, talk about it, because I know how many years of your life you can lose to this disease, and I know how hopeless it feels, and I really want to just spread the message and spread awareness that you can get better. We call ourselves Lyme warriors because you really do have to be a warrior to get through this disease. It is devastating, and it's certainly a lot more devastating than I ever thought. I mean, I had heard about Lyme, but I really didn't know the extent of how much people suffered.
What do you have for closing advice for people suffering from late-stage Lyme disease?
Stay extremely positive. That is the hardest part with Lyme because it actually attacks the nervous system. It does neurological damage. Stay away from sugar because sugar is so hard on the immune system. Try to eat as healthy as possible and stay hopeful and fight because there were times that I was a fighter. Then there were years where I didn't want to fight anymore and I just wanted to give it up. Don't do that because there really is hope.
Well, Fontaine, I think you're beautiful. I think your words glow. You've got a blog called GottaLoveOrganic.com, and what you're doing for helping others is absolutely fantastic. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking time to speak with me and our listeners, and we wish you an absolutely beautiful, sunny LA day.
Thank you so much.
And as we fade out, here's your tune called A Beautiful Thing.
It's such a beautiful thing the way you make me feel. And all the clouds in the sky just went and disappeared. It's such a beautiful thing that I saw you right then. And all the stars in the sky lit up for us again.
Although Lyme disease can be a complex illness with both acute and chronic manifestations, there seems to be general agreement on this: get tested early on. Knowing that sometimes tests for Lyme disease can show false negative, one should be prepared to get tested more than once, or at least until the cause for their illness has been clearly identified. Once Lyme disease has been detected, then treatment should start as soon as possible or ASAP. Let's go now and speak with the person who runs this clinic here in Germany, where this revolutionary new treatment for bringing hope to long-term Lyme disease sufferers was first offered. On the phone, I have Dr. Bijan Bustani from Infusio in Frankfurt, Germany. I've heard that Lyme disease is relatively easy to treat when detected early. Is this true?
It is, yes. Once you get bitten by a tick and you know that something is going on, so you get a big red rush on your leg or wherever you were bitten, you should go to your doctor, run a blood test. In most of the cases, it is quite easy to treat afterwards, but you have to be careful. You should know that even if you get treated immediately, the bacteria itself can stay in your system, and you should check up a couple of years afterwards.
Can you tell our listeners why Lyme disease can be so debilitating if not treated early?
Well, if you do not treat the Lyme disease or the bacteria early, the first thing which is going to happen is your immune system gets compromised. So it works constantly against a foreign bacteria, a viral, and then it gets weaker and weaker, and it prepares the terrain for new other diseases, and that's what they are calling co-infections. So chronic fatigue, constant systematic pain, things like that. So treat early, make sure your immune system is always strong, and then it's fine. Otherwise, the bacteria is going to damage structures in your system. So that's called neuroborreliosis. It's a damage on your nerve or on the neurological structures in your brain, which is causing horrible symptoms like brain fog, memory loss, vertigo, things like that.
When did Infusio begin your stem cell therapy program?
Infusio started about 10 years before with the stem cells. At that time, we started to run the so-called hematopoietic stem cells. It's a blood stem cell, and it's a mixture of different types of stem cells we use now in the clinic to repair and modulate the immune system. Fat stem cells combined with hematopoietic and mesenchymal stem cells. So every patient gets an individualized treatment on his symptoms.
What exactly is the Infusio Lyme program? Why is it different from anything else that's out there?
The difference, in my opinion, is the way we treat a patient. For us, a patient is not a patient. He's a partner. There is lots more of trust in between the doctors and the patient, and there is no fear. And then we get close to the point where nearly every doctor wants to be. We get an honest answer on all our questions about the symptoms.
That's very important.
Definitely. And the clinic itself is also different. It looks like a spa. It's a spa-like atmosphere.
It sounds amazing. Can I come there even if I don't have Lyme disease?
I would be very happy to meet you here, yes.
My next question on the serious side is, what is so unique about the Infusio treatment?
We try to find out what is wrong with the immune system. Where is the damage? We do a whole body scan. At the end of the scan, we know exactly about any kind of damage in the whole system, from the head to the toes. And then we do also a lot of blood tests. And based on these results, we start to create an individualized protocol by IVs. And this is for 2 weeks at the beginning. And lots of our patients, they feel way better even during the first days. At the end of the 2 weeks of the individualized IV protocol, the patients get the first round of stem cells, and then they go back home for 3 months. And after these 3 months, they come back for the second round of treatment, so the patients get boosted again after 3 months based on their current situation. We don't use any kind of antibiotics. What we want to is to repair a damaged system, mostly damaged by antibiotics. That's what the other clinics do. They use antibiotics for weeks and months to get rid of the bacteria, but to be honest, this is no more working. After maybe 2 weeks of antibiotics, the immune system is damaged, the body is damaged, and the bacteria is still existent. So we do the opposite, and we bring it back to health, back to the stage where it was before the patient was bitten by a tick.
Is that the default status of the body called homeostasis?
Exactly.
So your program is for the body, it's like pushing the reset button on our computer.
Exactly. That's a good word. We do a reset on the whole system. At first, getting rid of the foreign things, getting rid of heavy metals, toxins, bacteria, then do the reset, and afterwards boosting the whole system by immune-supportive IVs, bringing in stem cells, and then let the body work. Let it do its job, what it has to do by nature. We have two clinics. One clinic is located in Frankfurt in Germany, and the other one is located in Beverly Hills. And both clinics together doing the same things should be around 5,000 to 6,000 people with Lyme disease. We started with the clinic in Germany, in Frankfurt. After a while, we realized that the Lyme disease is way more in the United States. The medicine, in my opinion, is really in a bad situation. The doctors, they are very limited. And then we realized lots of patients are coming from the United States. They are traveling to Germany to get this treatment done in our clinic. At first, all the celebrities came. So they all went to the clinic and they wanted her immune system to be boosted. And through this way, lots of people heard from Infusio, and now it's already a big clinic in Beverly Hills.
Your new medicine, stem cell treatments, is this only valid for Lyme disease, or is it applicable to other problems like cancer? Or?
In my opinion, the stem cell technology, and my profession is stem cells, is going to be medicine of the future. So for nearly any disease, good to bring in the stem cells. Stem cells have different jobs, and especially on cancer, it is amazing to see how we can fight against cancer in our clinic. The dendritic cells, they are a special kind of stem cells, work against the cancer. So you can program these stem cells, asking them to attack the individual type of cancer of each patient. In my opinion, stem cells are going to be quite soon part of any kind of treatment in the medicine. We use stem cells for autism, for dementia, for Alzheimer. We use it for the Lyme borreliosis. We use it for cancer as an anti-aging product. So many successful treated people in here. Research should be fast to prove the FDA and all the other governments that this is a great product and we should work with it more often.
Are there any other Infusio treatment centers planned in the near or distant future, especially in America?
Yes. Currently, we are planning to open a clinic in Florida. That's the current situation. But we are planning to open 10 clinics worldwide. The website is www.infusio.org. Let me check this.
So www.infusio.org. What's your closing advice for people suffering from late-stage Lyme disease?
Never lose hope. Don't get desperate. And always live healthy.
Dr. Bijan, I thank you from the bottom of my stem cells and the bottom of my heart for taking time to speak with me and our listeners, and we wish you an absolutely fantastic day.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you, Dan.
I believe I can soar. I see me running through that open door. I believe I can fly. I can fly. I believe I can fly. I believe I can fly. Hey, if I just spread my wings, I can fly. 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 Hey, if I just spread my wings, I can fly.
Here are some useful tips I collected from the CDC about what you can do to protect yourself from tick, mosquito, and flea bites when going outdoors. This first one is pretty obvious. Wear long-sleeve shirts and long pants. You can treat items such as boots, pants, socks, and tents with permethrin or use permethrin-treated clothing and gear. Take steps to control ticks and fleas on pets, especially by finding and removing ticks daily from both family and pets. Take steps to control ticks, mosquitoes, and fleas inside and outside of your home. CDC also recommends that you should consider using an authenticated Environmental Protection Agency registered insect repellent.
A stick, a stone, the end of the road, the rest of the stump, it's a little alone. It's a sliver of glass, it is life, it's the sun, it is night, it is death, it's a trap, it's a gun. The open it blows a fox in the brush, the knot in the wood, the song. of a thrush, the wood of the wind, a cliff, a fall, a scratch, a lump. It is nothing at all. It's the wind blowing free. It's the end of the slope. It's a feeling, it's a void, it's a hunch, it's a hope. And the riverbank rocks on the waters of March. It's the end of all strain. It's the joy in your heart.
In summary, it appears that Lyme disease is caused by the bacterium Borrelia burgdorferi and has been typically transmitted to humans through, but not necessarily limited to, the bite of infected black-legged ticks. The usual symptoms include fever, headache, fatigue, and a characteristic bullseye skin rash called erythema migraines that begins at the site of a tick bite about a week after it has occurred. Be observant, since typically the rash is neither itchy nor painful. However, if left untreated, infection can spread to joints, the heart, and the nervous system. Lyme disease is diagnosed based on symptoms, physical findings, example the rash, and the possibility of exposure to infected ticks. Get laboratory testing quickly, since most cases of Lyme disease can be treated successfully within a few weeks using antibiotics. Steps to prevent Lyme disease include using insect repellent, removal of ticks promptly, reduce the tick environment by perhaps applying pesticides. The ticks that transmit Lyme disease can occasionally transmit other tick-borne diseases just the same, so be attentive. It is our intent to have created a better awareness for you about how Lyme disease can be treated effectively, especially when detected early. On behalf of the folks here at Radio Laura, we hope that we have provided a light at the end of a very dark tunnel for long-term sufferers of Lyme disease throughout America, and perhaps this segment may have also brought a smile to the faces of our local listeners, since this revolutionary new treatment came straight from right here in Germany. To be best prepared against Lyme disease, perhaps the best defense is simply a good offense. So, when you are venturing out into the wilderness throughout America, please remember to properly protect yourself from both ticks and mosquitoes so you can fully focus your attention on enjoying your wilderness exploration. For, in the words of Thoreau, we can never have enough of nature.
The bird of beauty of the sky pays so much in life for you to feel. I'm found in white and red or yellow peas. A mindless excursion can be such a thrill. You'll be satisfied. Take a chance in life. The bird of beauty of the sky. Beauty of the sky.